On July 22, 1987, I found myself accompanying a group of young Croatians to the Vatican to see Pope John Paul II. When we arrived that morning, the imposing dome of St. Peter's Basilica was already illuminated by the first rays of sunlight. Arriving early, we were able to settle in the front row at the papal audience to be held in St. Peter's Square. Soon after, thousands of other pilgrims arrived. When the Pope appeared, the crowd was in a frenzy. The pontiff walked among the people, blessing them. As he passed in front of us, he put his hand on my head and blessed me. The blessing ended before I could realize it. I stood still, smiling. I was over the moon with contentment at having received a Pope's blessing for the first time. But as the pontiff guided himself to walk, the Italian priest who accompanied me said aloud, "Holy Father, this is Mirjana from Medjugorje."
Whereupon the Pope stopped, turned back and gave me another blessing. I was chilled. His intense blue eyes seemed to go right through my soul. Not knowing how to find the words, I bowed my head and felt all the warmth of his blessing. When he turned away, I turned to the Italian priest and, joking to him I lived, he thought I needed a double blessing. We both had a laugh. Later that afternoon, once I returned to my hotel, still dazed from the whole experience, I was breathless to receive a personal invitation from the Pope, asking us to meet him privately the next morning in Castel Gandolfo. I was so excited that I could not get to sleep that night. What would our meeting have been like? What was I going to say? I had 1,000 questions on my mind. For a moment I calmed down, but soon after that I thought again. Tomorrow I will meet the Pope, and I went on like that throughout the night. The next day I arrived in Castel Gandolfo just before 8 o'clock, the appointed time for the meeting. This fortified village, about 25 kilometers from Rome, has been the summer residence of the popes for centuries. The papal palace, perched on a windswept hillside and surrounded by gardens and olive groves, overlooks Lake Albano, whose waters are blue in color, similar to the eyes of John Paul II. A man in uniform escorted me to the palace garden. When I saw the Holy Father there waiting for me, I immediately felt like crying. He looked at me and smiled. His gaze was full of warmth and love. I had the feeling that I was in the presence of a saint, a son of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I had learned to recognize something special in the eyes of people who loved Our Lady, a tenderness that only Heavenly Mother could convey. And this aspect in John Paul II was stronger than in anyone else. The Pope motioned me to sit with him. I had to convince myself that I was not dreaming. I had always thought that meeting the Pope was an impossible thing for an insignificant person like me, and now, there I was standing in front of him. I wanted to greet him, but I was too nervous even to utter a sentence. The Holy Father gently squeezed my hand and said, "Dzień dobry." He could not understand it. Maybe I was too excited and my ears were deceiving me, or maybe my brain had gone tilt. I was mortified. I had had a unique opportunity to meet the Pope, but I had no idea what he was saying to me. His words resembled Croatian, but I could not decipher them. He soon realized that he was speaking in Polish, Slavic languages like Croatian and Polish share many words. So the Pope wanted to see if we could both communicate in our native languages. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. But I remembered that there was one language we both knew. "Santa Padre, can we speak in Italian?" I asked. "The smile is from us." "Yes, good, Mirjana, good." We talked about many things, some I can reveal, some I cannot, and soon I felt completely at ease in her presence. He spoke to me with such affection that I would remain conversal there with him for hours. "Please ask Pellegrini Medjugorje to pray for my intentions," he said. "Of course, Your Holiness," I reassured him. "I know everything about Medjugorje. I have been following her messages from the beginning. Please tell me what it feels like when Our Lady appears." The Pope listened to me with great attention as I described what I experienced during the apparition. Every now and then he smiled and nodded his head softly. "And when it disappears," I concluded, "I find so much pain. At that moment the only thing I think about is when I will see her again." She leaned toward me and said, "Take care of Medjugorje, Miran. Medjugorje is hope for the whole world." The words of John and Paul II seemed to confirm the importance of the apparitions and the great responsibility I had as a reader. I was surprised by the convinced tone in his voice and the glow emanating from his eyes whenever I mentioned Medjugorje. Not to mention the perfection with which he pronounced the name of that country, always very difficult for foreigners to repeat. "Holy Father," I said, "I would like you to see all the people who come to us to pray." The Pope turned, staring eastward, letting out a thoughtful sigh. "If I were not Pope, I would have long since gone to Medjugorje," he said. "I will never forget the love radiated by the Holy Father." I had similar feelings with him as I had being with the Blessed Mother. Even looking into his eyes was like looking into Mary's. Later, a priest confided in me that the Pope had been interested in Medjugorje from the very beginning. For even before the apparition began, he had prayed to Our Lady to appear again on earth. "I cannot do it alone, Mother," he prayed. "In Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and other communist countries, people are not free to practice their faith. I need your help, dear Mother." According to that priest, the Pope, when he learned that Our Lady had appeared in a small town in a communist country, he immediately thought that Medjugorje had been an answer to his prayers.